That response still cracks me up. Surviving the Philbin era. Think about that.
It's impressive.
Wow, that was not easy. Joe liked us too, which is kind of interesting. We did
Yeah,
not
I
know
had a
that.
good relationship with him. He
Yeah,
was a really good guy.
nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? I mean, he could have been a real hard on about the amount of liberty that we took with his good name over the years because he just was boring. I mean, that was it. It was as simple as that. But he got a kick out of it actually because he
Yeah.
challenged us about coming up with the nickname "Smoking Joe Philbin." Which it turned out, I think we've told you the story before. The entire defensive coaching staff were huge fans of Luby and me, and they did their own impressions every day after meetings of our show, and they loved the nickname "Smoking Joe Philbin" and passed it along to him. And so we're interviewing Philbin, and we had the flagship rights to the team, so we had good access to all of these guys all the time, and they would throw us Philbin every now and then to promote things or whatever. And he right away starts out. Now you don't want this coming from a coach, especially you're a player, so they respect you even more. There's another level or dose of respect. We're just schmucks that talk about this stuff. And here we're challenging like this guy's ability to coach a team, and he says, "I hear you got a nickname for me," and we're like, "Oh fuck." I mean, this is not a good start.
Yeah.
And he says, "Yeah, Smoking Joe Philbin. I kind of like that." And I was like, "Wow, I mean,
Where do you go from there? Yeah.
what a surprise!" Yeah, no, that was great. But no, he was a lot of fun. All right, you want to start with the good game or the bad game? I mean,
Up to you guys. Up to you.
let's go with the good one because
right.
it sparks a lot of different things, and it was classic because Cincinnati was getting badly outhandled in the early portion of that game. First quarter was a disaster. Burrow's getting sacked like there's no tomorrow. I mean, you're thinking, wow, if they're going to put this kind of relentless pressure on Burrow and not be able to run the ball at the same time, going to be a long day. But you come out of the first quarter, and I don't know how many times Kansas City, this is why they were so terrible against the spread. I mean, they had dominated completely, 110 yards to 0 in the first quarter, and they're only up 6-zip. And you're thinking, it's still a game. A lot of people, especially after it became like, 13-3, what we're thinking, that this thing is over. But no, hardly the case because, Cincinnati managed to peck away. And even though Kansas City's defense was real good in the ballgame, that's just, a real tight matchup all the way around. And I thought Cincinnati was going to pull it out in the end. I really did. I don't
did
know what
as
you
well.
thought.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards Cincinnati finding a way to win. I thought some of the keys to the game early, Cincinnati, as you said, did nothing in the first quarter, but you looked at the scoreboard and you're going, gosh, well, we're one big play away from being up 7-6 or at least going down there and getting points. And they did that and they closed the gap. I just thought one of the keys, Kansas City on defense in the red zone denied Joe Burrow and the Bengals that touchdown they needed, that momentum, not only to get closer, but actually either tie it or take the lead, right? And I thought they did that at crucial times. And then every call that could have possibly went against the Bengals went against the Bengals.
No doubt.
On the road, tough game, two really good teams. Your offensive line not having a great day. Joe Burrow getting hit and sacked and pressured and hurried. It was one of those games where if you got a break in the officials' play calling or penalty calling, I guess you feel like, okay, we dodged a bullet. We're ready to go. We're going to make a play. We'll be able to win the game. That play either created or generated by offense, defense, or special teams, and then to have the officials, you go 0 for against them. It's tough to win on the road, especially against a quality team. And Patrick Mahomes did what he needed to do. I mean, he looked what I thought he would look like, kind of hobbled around there for a while.
Looked like the shot wore off in the second quarter.
Well,
even though they denied that he had taken any kind of medication for this thing.
Yeah, you don't know.
When it feels like 5 degrees, there's a lot of things that are going to wear off in the stands and on the field,
Right.
So it was a tough day or night to play there, and he gutted it out. He did what he needed to do to win.
No, it was great. And I love these kind of stories too, where a guy Marquez Valdez Scantling. I mean, sounds like what you can't imagine that this guy was going to be an MVP candidate. I'm sure they gave it to Mahomes, I guess, but
I mean,
an
I got a
MVP
pair of
candidate,
those.
for the game. He was great. This kid.
I got a pair of those jeans in my closet, those Valdez Scantlings. I mean, they're great.
Yeah, it sounds like
Yeah,
something you drink when you're sitting down having one with
yeah.
Julio Cesar Chavez in Mexico City. I mean,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's have the Valdez Scantling here. It's a great brand of tequila, but he makes a sensational catch. I mean, and I love that when some guy comes out of nowhere and on a championship platform like that and ends up making a day. I mean, the Chiefs though were afflicted with a lot of injuries in that game. You do have 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, but you would have to think that all the attention in the world is going to be on this Mahomes ankle over the next couple of weeks. And yet, as you said, and we compared this to this Japanese gymnast, Shun Fujimoto, who was on the still rings. I don't know if you remember this guy from like the
Yeah.
70 something
Yeah.
Olympics. And he had a broken leg and he had to do the dismount. And Mahomes, I mean, he read every option on that last play where when the time was, clicking off there and ended up having 10 seconds or 8 seconds to go in the game. But he has finally, the final option is to take off. And he actually dug in, I mean, in spite of the fact that he looked like he was being, more and more compromised throughout the game. And that was it. And then this Osai, who, he was having a real good ball game. He was a major factor in Cincinnati being in the game on the defensive side and makes one of those bonehead plays that, wow, I mean, is that up there? I don't know that it's going to be up there with like Jackie Smith and Bill Buckner and, some of that stuff. But, certainly cost them any chance they had to win the ball game
Yeah,
and ultimately led to the loss.
that game extends into overtime, and now you're at the mercy of what happens, right? You
Right, you
don't
got a
know what's
hobbling
going to
Mahomes
happen.
and
Right.
Burrow, who was finding Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Wow, what a pair of receivers!
Right. And down the stretch of that game, Mahomes on, a couple third and mediums to short went
Yeah,
down the field and was successful, once finding Chase, and the other time, they get an interception on a tip pass. So it wasn't like Cincinnati sat back and was playing for a tie or playing for
no,
overtime. They were going for it. And, a couple plays turned their way at the end and they may be, riding high. But you're right, that play there, nothing irritates, coaches more or players more that you're fighting all the way through and a mental bust, and that leads to a physical play that doesn't need to happen. They're going to punt the football. As a defense, you have to know you're always talking about, well, the quarterback needs to orchestrate, if you line up properly and get guys on the line, off the ball, put guys, right the offensive line for protection, identify guys. On defense, you're doing the same thing. Linebackers have to know, listen, it's third and whatever. He's running for 3 or 4 yards at the most, and they're going to punt the football back to us.
yeah,
The last thing you want to do is put it,
Whew.
a hand by a helmet, by a quarterback, force him out of bounds when he's already going out of bounds. He's not going to run away from you.
Yeah. What's he going to
So,
spin? Do a
yeah, he
360
doesn't
like he
have
does sometimes? No way.
yeah, he doesn't have that ability.
Yeah.
So know your situation, and that's one of the things that eats away as a football team. Just going like we should be smarter than that. We're in the AFC Championship game for a reason. Not only our ability physically, but mentally, we've made plays that we've either stayed away from or just turned down, and that's when you turn down as a defender.
How hard in the moment is it to do that? Because that's the thing. Like you saw him, a lot of people said, well, he was just frustrated he didn't get there. I don't know about that. I think he figured he had the angle. And then once Mahomes got the angle, he was like, shoot. And he just got lost in the moment because he's been running after this guy all day. Like, how hard is it in the moment to have your brain go, no, don't do the thing you've been taught to do for the last 20 years? Like,
Well, that's part of your training, though. That's part of your discipline, right? You have to know when it's attack, and you have to know when it's I'm going to slow play this guy out of bounds because he can't run away from me. This guy's wounded,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
even though he's got a hip
He
on
doesn't
me
have
and he's
time
got a couple yards, he's not going to go much farther. And you have the cavalry coming from the secondary as well. So all you're doing is riding him out of bounds. You're escorting him to the easiest way possible to get the ball back and then go to overtime. So that I would chalk up to, a mental bust, because you have to be better than that. You have to be better than that. Your expectation as a player and a coach are to not make that play, right?
Yeah.
So in the first quarter, that play might not be as significant. Okay, you might your adrenaline's running and you're up to making a play. In the heat of the moment, you're thinking before the snap, what happens if? Almost like a baseball player at shortstop or third base, ball gets hit to me, runners at first and second, one out. What am I doing?
Yeah.
So when he escapes, you're going, okay, I'm going to get him out of bounds or I'm going to get him on the ground. But the last thing I'm going to do when he's in the white of the out of bounds is I'm going to put my hands on him.
Oh, yeah. Mahomes is in the stands by the time this guy hits him. We have some people, including our good friend Jim Sarney, screaming, that they should have swallowed the whistle there. But I don't know. I mean, you could never call, unsportsmanlike conduct or, unnecessary roughness if you didn't call it there. Because, I mean, he's clearly out. And like you said, John, you have to, sort of, pre-analyze the situation. What am I going to do if, Mahomes is only going to do one thing, and it's run out of bounds.
Right.
So, get whatever yardage you can. And I think Butker would have had to try like a 60-yard field goal, right?
I think
that's a
they pumped the
15-yard
football
penalty
there because he barely made it with the penalty yards.
Yeah.
He made it by 4 or 5 yards.
Right.
With the 15 yards that
they wouldn't have tried it from that distance. You're right.
Tried it. It would have been like 57, 50.
Now you're in overtime, guaranteed,
and
Cincinnati, I think, had gathered most of the momentum there. It was a decent job by the KC defense to kind of stave off a complete, overwhelming, comeback by the Cincinnati Bengals in that game, because as you said, that they held them a couple of times, after long drives, when it got down to like the 5-yard line.
Not only did Cincinnati, start to build some confidence and momentum in that second half on offense, but Kansas City, their receiving core was kind of beat up. Mahomes is beat up.
Yeah.
You're getting later in the game where I think Chase might be able to take over in terms of, with him and T. Higgins running.
Man, he's great.
Around.
Those two guys are
great.
Yeah,
those two guys are terrific, right?
Yes.
So I think Cincinnati might have had the momentum. Okay, we came all the way back. We got a chance in overtime. There's new overtime rules. We're going to get the football. We got a fighter's chance, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of how both teams roll, throughout the season, where you saw Cincinnati always overcoming obstacles and Kansas City kind of like drawing itself back to the pack all the time, which they did to some degree in this ball game as well. How did Zach Taylor avoid punching one of the officials in that game? I mean, if you're ever going to take a penalty, you may as well have just slugged like the head, the referee in that ball game, because especially that blunder with the clock. I mean, that was atrocious the way they enforced that, and confused the living daylights out of virtually everybody. Right?
I've never seen a do-over.
No, nobody knew what was going on.
In the National Football League.
A do-over.
You know what? Let's just run the play over again. Now, you get 3 more plays. They get the stop. They get the ball back. And I think that was the drive that leads to the interception where Kansas City gets it on their own, like 10-yard line or something like that. But still, I've never seen that happen before. When they showed the replay, you could clearly see the official trying to stop the play from deep in the secondary.
Yeah, but he's way back there. He's in left field.
How does no one stop the play? Like, that was weird.
Yeah, it was. That was a scenario I've never seen unfold before.
Well, especially since they run the play.
One.
Yeah, I mean, they run the play and then they're short. And Zach Taylor, I don't know how he, restrained himself from just going ahead and slugging a guy, because he was already, being, seemingly victimized by a series of sort of, I don't know that they were all questionable, because sometimes they roll it back. Okay, yeah, did he hold him?
Right.
Yeah, he did. But, he was, it seemed like getting the worst of it from the officials the entire ball game. And that was just an absolute capper, right? You're forcing them into a punt, and now they get to do a do-over. It was Colorado, Missouri all over again. Now, why don't we just give the Chiefs 5 downs?
Here we go.
Yeah. Incredible. And that was a big issue in the other game, too. San Francisco, I mean, penalized to an extraordinary level. In that game. Now, I don't know that it would have mattered, because they just didn't have any firepower and couldn't score after, the injury to the second-string quarterback, which was the fourth-string guy. But and are you with us? I mean, is this, the whole thing about Colin Kaepernick raising its ugly head, where the Niners should have had him on the roster because he's still capable of playing? A lot of people think so. Adam Schefter is reporting he was throwing passes at the beach just the other day and to his girlfriend, and she was making a lot of nice catches in the water.
Here's the thing I don't get in the National Football League.
Yeah.
They have, you dress 50, you have a 53-man roster for a game that gets cut
Yeah.
down to 47 that are
Why do
active.
they do that though?
I
Why
have
is that
no
still in
idea.
play?
It doesn't make any sense
No,
whatsoever
it's
because
embarrassing too.
they
Yeah.
pay those guys anyway.
Yeah.
They're getting their full salary. Why not have them available to dress so you have more depth and make it mandatory that every team has to dress 3 quarterbacks every game and it
Yeah.
doesn't count against your 53.
Well, would Jimmy G have been the third guy? I mean, who would have
Well,
been the third guy? They would have to
At
sign like
least
Bubby
you would have
Brister.
had to sign somebody that
Yeah.
could actually
Yes.
play the position. You don't get embarrassed when
Yeah.
you have triple reverse to McCafferty that throws the football down to nowhere.
Mike Glennon, right? I mean,
So I don't understand. There's enough. Dollars and cents aren't the issue.
yeah.
Dress all of the guys that are capable of dressing that day, so you have more depth for special teams. So you don't have to. If you get nicked at wide receiver or linebacker or DB, you don't have to go bare bones and have one of your starters. That's a defensive, a premier corner that doesn't play on any special teams, or a tight end like Kelsey have to now play special teams because you've got 2 guys down that are your premier special teams guys. You have extra bodies, and like the situation that exposed itself yesterday in Philadelphia, you don't have to worry about running Wildcat the entire second half because you have both quarterbacks. One is concussed. The other guy, hurt his elbow and arm and nerve damage to his right hand. He can't grip the football to throw it. So it shouldn't happen. There's enough resources and enough forward thinking just to dress 3 quarterbacks. They don't count against your number, and you dress 52 or 3 or whatever the number is. If you include that, and you roll out like that, you have more bodies to play in a game.
It's kind of in the NHL. Don't they have a situation where if both your goalies go down, they
the
actually
guy
pull a
that's
guy out of the
selling
crowd?
popcorn
Yeah.
comes down. He's the designated.
All of a sudden, he's Jacques Plant.
It's the same thing. I
It's
mean,
crazy.
just
Jimmy, actually, speaking of the Big Chill, I remember him advocating that. I mean, a long time ago when he was coaching the Dolphins, I remember him coming over one day and doing a big long rant about how ridiculous it is to have a 53-man roster and only dress 47. And it's a twofold thing because obviously there's a lot of ego involved in being a professional athlete. You have to think that you're great or whatever, and you don't want to feel like the guy that just got cut from his junior high school team, and you're showing up, to the game, in a shirt and tie. While I'm sitting in the stands, I mean, how do you tell those 6 guys they're not playing after they, have been with you all the way through all of the schwitzing and everything, in the preseason, and now they're on the team, and you're telling them that they're not dressing for the game. I mean, it's an embarrassment from that standpoint, I believe.
Well, it just allows the NFL to have more quality players that the game doesn't just take a nosedive
Yeah,
like it did in Philadelphia and San Francisco yesterday.
that game
I mean,
became
was a
somewhat
complete.
unwatchable. Yeah,
It was. I fell asleep. I wasn't
yeah,
kidding. I fell asleep during portions of the game because it just we're going through the motions. It almost should have been like you have the white flag and you just go, you know what, we've had enough.
throw in the towel. Yeah,
We have no chance, no matter what we do, because now we have no ability to move the football. And and they were to San Francisco's credit, they were still able to grind out first downs and run the football.
Yeah.
But you knew they had no threat of doing anything else. So it was a matter of the clock just churning and churning because the clock was not going to stop. They were going to run the football every play.
Yep.
Oh no, that got really embarrassing. You'd figure at some point he just like flips one of those little funky tosses, or throws a screen pass or something. But they had nothing to combat what already is a formidable Philadelphia defense. All right, so we didn't see the Eagles tested at all. I mean, they breezed by the Giants, who we heard from Brett Tessler earlier, and he was saying, let's face it, the Giants were a borderline playoff team. They clinched the next to last week, or I don't know if they had to beat the Colts in that last game. I don't think so, but they may have. All right, so they're in there at like 10-7 on the season, or 9-7-1, something like that. They win a playoff game in Minnesota impressively. Minnesota, known as a choking dog team. And sure enough, they live up to their reputation in that category, losing to the Giants at home and getting outplayed. But Philadelphia, very impressive. I thought they were impressive against the Giants, but I don't know what to make of Philadelphia at this point. And they've been installed as a 2-point favorite over Kansas City. I thought it might be more, but I guess, the odds makers were also looking at was kind of a performance under the circumstances. That you would have thought they would have been more dominant in that ball game. What do you make of the matchup? Philadelphia, and were you impressed with them? And the Kansas City Chiefs, who we don't know what they're going to look like in a couple of weeks.
Well, I was impressed with Philadelphia the whole year. I mean, you take a look at the National Football League and you look at all the teams. There's a reason why they were sitting at top, and had the most wins and did a lot of really good things with Jalen Hurts and the offense that they were able to create. They have 2 or 3 running backs that can kind of roll you out in different ways, and they have a couple of dominant receivers that can take over a game with double tight ends and a good offensive line. And then that doesn't even speak on the other side of the football, where they were probably more dominant on defense. I think it was just an easy matchup against the Giants. Sometimes matchups make games and sometimes they don't. And I think that was the latter for the Giants. They just didn't match up well against Philadelphia and what they brought to the table. Now, yesterday, could they have done more? I think Philadelphia is kind of saying, well, we didn't have to do much to beat that team.
They were under wraps.
That was supposed to be really good. Now they, have both of their quarterbacks go down. It's a lot easier for Philadelphia to take control of the football game. And Hurts didn't have to rely on his legs in terms of, he ran the football a couple times, took a couple shots later in the game, which were maybe unnecessary because it was kind of out of hand. But you have 2 weeks now before you play the Super Bowl. So I think both of these teams will be closer. I don't know if they'll be 100% because both Mahomes and Hurts came into that game, clearly not 100%. But I think Hurts was closer, obviously, than Mahomes. Yeah. It should be a really good game. If both teams show up and play their best, it'll come down to whoever has the football last. I think it's both of these defenses have players that you have to account for. They're really good in the front seven. They can get after opposing quarterbacks. So I think it's going to be one of those games where later in the second half, somebody's going to turn the football over. Somebody's going to make a play on defense that tees up their offense to go down and score either a field goal or a touchdown to win it late.
You remember that Super Bowl with Dwight Freeney? That was like the only story anybody talked about for 2 weeks. It was here in Miami between Indy and Chicago.
Yes.
I want to say like circa,
13, it was 07, 08, something like that.
Yeah. It was a while back. And I remember that's all anybody talked about. I was on Radio Row here. And, you went through 40 interviews and everybody's like, how's Dwight Freeney's ankle? And the game turned out to be just a butcher job. I guess it was played under horrendous weather conditions. And, Peyton Manning did nothing in the ball game. And the Bears could muster up like zero offense, as I recall. And the Colts ended up winning. But that was it. That was the whole storyline. I don't know. I mean, it may pale in comparison to the amount of attention that Patrick Mahomes' ankle is going to get for this game, because it was clear whatever he did to rehab this thing, the pain had been, or the restrictiveness of it had been reignited during the course of that game. Because towards the end, I mean, I couldn't believe that he took off on that run and actually outran a couple of people to the edge.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, he had to know at that point, it was like a John Congemi last dash, drive at the University of Pittsburgh, knowing that he was going to need surgery tomorrow, but throwing one, that took a lot of guts and a lot of effort.
It did. And just think about it. He's probably not going to do much, I would think, over the next 3 or 4 days, right?
Yeah.
Just give him complete rest, give him almost the whole week off, mentally prepare for the Eagles, get in the meetings, but don't really do much on the field.
Yeah.
And I think Jalen Hurts probably a little bit, he'll have a little bit more on his plate.
Sure.
But they're still going to give these guys this whole week to try to get right, because this is a long, long season, and guys that get injuries like that, you need some time. And if you can steal some time with this extra week before they play the Super Bowl, hey, just think if it was the old times where you played this week, right?
A week later, forget about it.
That bye week, this game might not be as good because of your key players not feeling 100%. Now, somehow, some way, you're going to get there, but like you said, Defo, and as you witnessed, as the game goes on, certain things kind of, wear off and you're back to reality where, you're hurting and you're going on adrenaline just to get you through.
It's amazing they haven't come up with something, that you can inject into a guy. I know cortisone, would be something, or there are any number of painkillers that can mask it, but, may ultimately be, extremely dangerous to use,
Right.
especially with a $500 million commodity, because if the guy's not feeling any pain and, he doesn't know if, he needs to come out of the ball game or not. But I'm amazed they haven't come up with something that can kind of resolve that. Like I don't know, I had this stuff juiced in my knee, and whatever pain I was experiencing went away. And they say it's like lasts like a year. Now I limped out of the office there, but I was better like 2 weeks later.
Right.
It was like fine again, which I thought, what a miracle! Whatever that stuff was. I mean, I was like limping around. I'm amazed they haven't come up with something for the ankle yet. That well, I think this stuff was called Synvac, and I don't know if you ever heard of it. Danny
No.
Boy might just inject this regularly at this point to walk around, but it like rejuvenates and relubricates your knee, even if you're in like a bone on bone situation. But they haven't come up with anything yet for the
How
ankle. So,
long did it take for you to feel well? A couple weeks?
you know what? A few days later, you could see some some progress, and then. Like the guy said, it lasts about a year, so I don't look forward to getting the next shot. But I mean,
Yeah.
no matter what, it's just there's this like giant needles in your knee for like a while, even though you don't feel it. It's not like it's so painful. It's just like you feel this stuff going in there.
It
I don't know
looks
what it is.
horrible. Yeah, you're going, really? Is that what's happening right
It's
now?
just when you're feeling this stuff going in, it's like you feel like you just got clocked by Joe Frazier. Like, whoa, I'm a little woozy here, but nothing for the ankle. So we'll see. That's an interesting story because it looked like they repaired it to the point where in the early portion of the game,
It
Mahomes
was
was
fine.
okay,
Yeah.
and then it deteriorated throughout the ball game to the point where he literally was verbal Kent,
Yep.
coming off the field there in the usual suspects. All right, Jimmy Johnson's big chill. I would imagine. I don't know if you got any reports, John Congemi, from Dominic Congemi or the lovely Amanda, or even the man himself, Jimmy or Larry Calvano, but it had to be just rocking there over the weekend, no?
It had to be. You had some nice weather outside. You were able to go out and enjoy it. So I'm sure down in Key Largo, it was beautiful at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill for the championship weekend. I know, last time we were down, it was awesome. And I was down about a month and a half ago and just kind of around to the sports bar and got a cocktail and then walked out to the tiki bar. It was just fabulous. So Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill was probably the spot to be in the Keys for championship weekend. And I would guess with the bye week in 2 weeks, the Super Bowl will be rocking down at Jimmy Johnson's.
I like the idea that people got married there, right? Didn't they just host a
They had a
wedding? You were
wedding a
saying,
couple
yeah,
weeks ago. Yeah, they
yeah,
did. And
yeah,
they have that area down by the bay where
right there, yeah, on the
yeah,
sand.
yeah, it's perfect. It's so scenic for all the pictures, and then you go up top to the rooftop and have your reception, and yeah, just a beautiful spot for any occasion, really.
No, it's always great. I mean, they ran the Miami Marathon yesterday, which I think these people are mashugana that they're
Yeah.
going marathons. I ran into a friend of mine. He's like the groundskeeper at the tennis center where I play in Pompano Beach. Does a tremendous job. A guy named Kevin, man. I mean, he's really on top of it. And I run into him at Publix the other night, and he says he's thinking about running in a marathon. That he just did like 16 miles as a warm up. I'm like 16 miles. I can't even conceive of running 3 steps on like the pavement
Yeah.
at this point. Much like 16 miles as a warm up. But they should have started the thing in Florida City, no? And just run, isn't it about 26 miles down there? And then taking
Perfect.
a right into the Big Chill. And what a great way to end up at the bar there, at the Tiki Bar, right after running, 26 miles and 385 yards.
Yeah, right into the arms of the tiki bar would have been perfect.
Yeah, perfect, man. I mean, that would be my first move after running that many miles because I figure I schwitzed off enough to eat a whole Italian fisherman pizza.
That's right.
Just give me all 8 slices there,
Yeah.
Dominic.
Cut it.
Yeah.
Cut them small. Cut them small. It'll
Cut
be
it in
better.
half. Yeah. All right, get down there. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. It's mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway. Great food and drink, unique menu, and all kinds of great stuff. The atmosphere couldn't be any more of a good vibe, good kind of time that you're going to have in the Keys. And the Keys are a great place to relax, especially this time of the year where fishing is great and all these other things. And you can hang out there at Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill all day long, listen to the great music, and just have yourself a grand old time. All right, more to come. A lot of other stories, John, concerning the NFL.
Those
Whereabouts
Dolphins.
of people. Los Dolphins, made a move there with Fan Show, which, Brett Tesser was making it sound like, they'd brought back Buddy Ryan from the grave with this guy.
Hey,
He might be as old as Buddy.
Yeah. He's a defensive consultant for the Eagles, and look what that defense is doing. So I'm sure he's got his fingerprints a little bit on what they're doing as a defense, and who knows what the Dolphins and the playmakers they have on defense. An experienced guy might be exactly what they need.
I like this move too from this standpoint. I mean, you have a young guy in Mike McDaniel, and yet you have like an old stodgy, throwback type of coach on the staff there. Very Bill Arnsparger-esque.
Yes.
Yes. Like working with a young Dan Shula who was, doing all kinds of stuff. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk about a lot of different developments in the National Football League. Maybe touch on the upcoming matchup in the Super Bowl some more with John Congemi in the Pigskin Playbook here on the Defo Show. Back with more in a moment. Now that.
It's time.
It's 8:40.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Congemi. Now, did you scale it back when you were head-to-head with Danny there at Augusta National? Because, he doesn't like to lose.
Actually, guys, you're right. Dan doesn't like to lose at anything. And the only time I was ever able to go to Augusta, I think the Samsung guy backed out, and Danny asked me about 11:30 at night, and I put on my shoes and went to bed. And I woke up and went to Augusta, made a hole-in-one on the 16th hole, and Dan said he hit a better shot than me, so he took the tee on 17. So I let him do that. I didn't want to
running you after a hole-in-one.
When you add it up, I flew up on a private jet. I was going to eat for free. I played the golf course. I figured he deserves the tee on 17.
I mean, the audacity just to cut right in front of you after a hole-in-one.
Buenos dias. The cafecito is piping hot. Why not enjoy it with Defo and Luby? It's now time for the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. The title games yesterday, one a boredom fest, an unfortunate mismatch created by injuries and all kinds of other bizarre circumstances. And the other, a thrill in Manila type of ball game, even though it may not have brought 100% of the greatness of these two teams to the table. They fought each other, as they have each time, right? 3-point margins, I think, in virtually every ball game.
Yes, every game.
Yeah. So good rivalry developing there. Cincinnati finally loses. Is Travis Kelce, is he the new Gronk? I mean, this guy, he's wild, not only as a player, but, after the game, he's calling the Cincinnati mayor a jabroni on national television, which, is not particularly, a flattering term. I mean, you being Italian would be well aware of that. Basically, it's like calling a guy a horse's ass on national television, no? So he was great.
He's great. I think he's good for the game. He lets it loose and maybe tone it back when he's doing all types of things on national TV. But still, I mean, he's a passionate player. He's a productive player. He's one of the best in the league, if not the best.
Oh, he's great.
So
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's awesome to see that those guys have they have each other's back. You know, Mahomes was kind of getting it all week where he couldn't beat Burrow. And I think that kind of ate away at some of Kansas City's players that wanted to prove that, they could find a way to win at home and not be, Burrowhead Stadium. It was Arrowhead Stadium and Patrick's Place. And one of those things where it's tough to hear that all week and not have some built up frustration that you want to let out once the game's over and you've won the game.
There was a lot of bulletin board material being referenced
Yes.
there, which, I mean, I usually dismiss it. I don't think anything of the whole bulletin board thing. I mean, if guys insulting you outright, that's one thing. But I guess they took that to heart because they couldn't help. Everybody was kind of making reference to it, especially
Right.
Kelsey afterwards, saying, what, basically go bleep yourselves. All of you people in Cincinnati, go choke on your Skyline chili. And, all right, we touched on the Fangio thing. One of the other weird things, John, that's going on. What's happening with Kellen Moore in your estimation? Because he was a candidate for virtually every head coaching job. I would say Dallas had a decent season from an offensive standpoint. They were fourth in the league in scoring, which is the ultimate criteria for whether or not your offense is functioning. I don't know if that was fueled and thrown out of whack by defensive scores. I wouldn't think so. Kellen Moore, I mean, widely respected. So, what do you think happened there? I mean, it's like firing the hitting coach, right? Isn't it? McCarthy would be the guy that you would thought would come under fire at the end of the season.
I don't know what happened there. I mean, when you ask a guy to step down, is that any different than saying, "Hey, you're fired"? I don't know.
I can assure you, it's happened to me.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I thought Dallas was getting better and better each and every year, and maybe they took a step back in terms of where they got to the previous 3 years with offensive success. But as you mentioned, you're in a top 5 situation in points scored on offense. You're in every ball game, no matter how bad your defense is, and their defense was pretty good. So I think everybody's looking to point fingers sometimes when you don't have the success that you're projected to have or maybe want to have as an owner. And Jerry's going to be one of those guys that you would think he would go from the top down and just get rid of everybody that way, because he was fond of young offensive coordinators, aka like Jason Garrett and Kellen Moore. So I don't know. I think that was the last guy on the chopping block, because it seemed like they got 4 or 5 other assistants already.
Yeah.
And so it's just about your
Where's
hiring
Dave Campo? I mean, is he
Yeah,
hovering
you're-
around
you're
the
at this
Cowboys
point,
offices? Yeah.
you're hiring a completely new staff. So I think the Cowboys are going to be busy this week at the Senior Bowl, not only looking at talent, but trying to find an offensive and defensive staff that they can put together.
All right, so what do you think happens to Kellen Moore? I mean, usually he would have been named like a head coach somewhere before you had this business with the Cowboys coming up. And it sounded to me, I mean, at least from the reports, it looked to me like he had interviewed for at least 3.
Well,
of,
the Chargers
what
were
were
one
5
of them.
openings. Yeah.
The Chargers are one of them. I think a couple other teams were mentioned, but as you said, there's still a lot of teams out there with head coaching availability. So I'm sure he's going to get in line now, with the rest of the guys that are trying to, jockey their names to the top of the leaderboard, and maybe he's a candidate for one of those jobs. I don't know. It might be another turn at offensive coordinator before he gets a shot at as a head coach.
The rhetoric would lead you to believe that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are el finito.
Yeah. I thought they were done last year, to be honest.
Yeah, the body language looked that way until they started making that little surge at the end of the season, including an embarrassing road win over our own Miami Dolphins at a critical time of the year. But they fell short, losing to Dallas. To the Lions on that last game of the regular season, where the Lions knew they were out of the playoffs and still played a dynamite game against them. Um, do you see Rodgers coming back there? And it seems like the conversation has kind of shifted in the direction of he's not. And where does he go, or does he just? I know you're not a mind reader, but what do you see? I mean, do you see him actually quarterbacking another team next year?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing you have to do is, okay, do I want to play?
Yeah,
And if the answer is yes, I've got all that money on the table in Green Bay. If I want to play, do I want to go back there? And do they have to make certain, adjustments to the offensive talent for me to come back there? Or do they trade me somewhere? And if that's a possibility, who's going to be able to take on that contract and still be able to get enough people around him that team, wherever that destination is, they can be competitive with them.
yeah, and it has to be a 1-year prop. I mean,
Yeah, it's one or two, right?
two
At the
tops.
most.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think his best bet is going back to where he is, and they don't do anything, and he gets his money and he goes and plays. But I think the first thing is, do I want to play football? And if I do, for all the right reasons, there's a lot of millions of dollars sitting on the table for him to make. So
Yeah.
I think that's the first thing in the offseason that Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers have to cross that bridge together. And if they do, then they got to go out and find some players to beef up the offense around him.
Well, and this as well as anybody that a quarterback can get crushed at any time, and have some kind of debilitating injury that maybe even impacts the rest of his life. But we've certainly seen. It seems like every play they're picking somebody off the field in NFL games these days. Whether the injuries are minor or not, but Rodgers doesn't seem to play with the kind of recklessness that even though he does run with the football. I don't know. It seemed like this year he was just kind of hanging out back there. And, it wasn't really under any immense pressure. I don't know. Maybe, I didn't see obviously every play of the Green Bay Packers season, but certainly it looks like if he wanted to come back, it wasn't like, he was going to do himself any great damage because he's mastered the art of, knowing what to do with his body.
Yeah, you watch Tom Brady and you watch Aaron Rodgers play the position. They're not going to take as many shots as some other guys because they're going to either run out of trouble to just throw the football away, or they're going to get rid of it a lot sooner. And they're not exposing themselves to big hits unless somebody just comes free and they happen to get caught unaware, but that doesn't happen much.
Yeah.
So I wanted to circle back to, and we touched on the Fangio thing a little, like Defo brought it up and you made a remark, but it's funny things like this, and I guess it's sort of true. Like for years, it felt like the Dolphins, every move they made felt questionable, felt Philbin, hammering. But the last at least couple moves between McDaniel was heralded, and Fangio, people are using the term grand slam. Like they're not even saying home run or great hire. They're saying literally the Dolphins beat out 14 for this guy. Whatever he was as a head coach, as a defensive mind, he's as good as any ever. They're really talking about him like he's the piece the Dolphins were missing. And the fact that he's an older dude to McDaniel's younger guy, which is what Boyer wasn't, he can look. McDaniel a lot of the time made decisions that all of us were like there's no one there to be like, and it feels like he'd be that guy. He is an old enough guy to be like, look, we don't have to throw it here. It's okay if you run it here. It's okay and no one else on that staff I felt like was doing that. People feel like this hire covers every base. What are your thoughts? Because I've never heard of them talk about a Dolphins hire where they're talking about this Vic Fangio hire.
Well, Fangio had a ton of interest everywhere, not only as a potential head coach, which he once was in Denver for a season or two, but as a defensive coordinator. I think Indianapolis wanted him, Carolina wanted him. There was a lot of places where he could have landed. And for him as a coach, he's 64 years old. Okay, I'm not quite sure what Mike McDaniel's age is, but it's nowhere near 45. He's either 30-something, late 30s or early 40s. And all the other coordinators that McDaniel and the Dolphins have interviewed were all 39, 42, 43. They were all in that strike zone. Now, you had to make a decision. Do I want a guy with experience that can come in, that has head coaching pedigree, that is handled, from top to bottom, everything? And all I want him to do is either be a sounding board for me and be the head coach of the defense, where I don't have to mess with it. I can ask a question or two, but I know this guy's handling everything from A to Z? Or do I have to keep an eye on the defense and babysit a little bit with a younger guy that I don't quite agree with what he's going with, but I'm gonna learn a little bit more, but it's gonna take me away from the offensive side, or it's gonna take me away from special teams. I think they went with the first choice because this team is close. Remember, we're all saying all year they're all in, right? With all the moves they made, Bradley Chubb, Tyreek Hill, this team's in a 2-3 year window where they're all in. And if the quarterback stays healthy and plays close to what he did this year, they're going to have a chance to win in the AFC. They closed the gap on Buffalo. 3 games, 4 points separates those wins or losses against the Bills. If they can get a little bit better, a little bit more cohesive, get the ball turned over a little bit more frequently on defense, maybe that closes the gap. And now they've got a guy that is well respected with the experience coming in and handling that side of the football. So yeah, I think it fits everything the way the Dolphins are going. If you get a younger guy, do you have to learn on the run, and that window starts to, that 2 or 3 year window starts to evaporate because now the contracts are all hitting. You got to pay Chubb millions of dollars. You got to pay X millions of dollars. You got to pay Tua at some point. You're going to pay Wilkins this year. There's a lot of Armstead still on the hook, and how many games is he going to play? The window is not there for long. So you have to be able to get guys that are going to come in and handle their business. And I think Fangio is going to do that on the defensive side for the Dolphins.
Is Tom Brady going to be somebody's one-year solution at quarterback next year? Or, obviously, there's a possibility that he doesn't play. I think just to further piss off Giselle while she's gallivanting around with that jiu-jitsu guy, riding naked horseback in the seas of Costa Rica. You're like, could she do any more publicly to embarrass Brady after the season that he had and the way it finished? Does he come back just out of spite? If not, can he be a functional piece of somebody's championship dreams next year, Tom Brady?
Well, he's got to answer the same question that Aaron Rodgers has to answer. Only his is a little different because he's totally a free agent, right? Do I want to play one more year? And if I do play, is it San Francisco that needs a quarterback for a year? Is Jimmy G's going to not come back? And you're still, you had success with, a rookie 7th round draft choice, but is he going to be able to bridge it for a whole season, right?
He might need Tommy John too. I mean, that's
you don't know the extent of the injury. I mean, you have the whole off season, but still, you might have to have surgery, or maybe it's just one of those things where in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, he's going to be fine. But still, that doesn't answer the question long term. So yeah, I don't think Tom Brady's going to. I mean, people are saying that he has a chance to go back to Tampa Bay. I don't know. I just don't know if that's going to happen. But he has to answer the same question Aaron Rodgers does. Do I want to play another season? Do I want to, go through this again? And if I do, where do I want to do it? I'm building a house here. My kids are here. Just put them in school. Do I want to still be in Tampa for that reason to get back and forth as quickly as I need to be? Or do I want to go for it somewhere else?
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the commentary during the game. I like Greg Olson. We said this earlier. Too much slubbering. I don't know. What is your thought? It just seems like, the minute the play's over, he starts in, and even though what he's saying seems to be like technically correct and all of that, it just seems like too much. Like after a while, you tune it out because it's just so much. Well, one thing on top of another, a lot of technical analysis. What do you think? I mean, very likable guy, noble character, ex-UM guy. We got to know him here. Does everything right, had a nice career, I think maybe even better than people anticipated. But I don't know. Should he be like the number one analyst there on Fox? I thought he was just babbling away after a while.
Well, I think in both games, it could have been less is more.
Yeah, that's Tony's game too. He just
as a fan. Yeah. As a fan, you're kind of just want to let it breathe a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that sometimes either producers, direct, you just go, and sometimes on second down, it's just not say anything. It just let the play-by-play guy take you through and kind of set it up and not worry about predicting a play or telling us why that the formation that they're in while the ball is still not snapped. Just kind of let it breathe and hear let the natural sights and sounds kind of eke their way into the broadcast.
That's a lost art, John Congemi. It really is. I mean, the thing that's is concerning, I guess, of the trends in color analysis, especially in football games, is we're watching the pictures. So
Yeah.
and that seems to be lost. And then there's this new infatuation with all kinds of illustrative gadgets, which I don't know that you need that on every play because I mean it seems to confuse the issue more than clarify it in a lot of
The
cases.
one I hate,
Yeah.
Defo, is the one where they have the circles with the numbers on it,
Yeah.
and it's digitally. I'm like, I just saw the play.
Yeah.
I'd rather see the play again
And it's
than
all
tell
circling
me
around.
about it
Yeah.
on the thing that you sold for I don't know how many millions of dollars to whatever company that we have to show.
I mean, it's overkill. It just is. Not enough insight into who the players are. You would think that a color analyst would study that a little bit more and maybe give you more of that storyline than just the usual stuff about how he eye pointed the football when we saw he jumped over the guy's back and made the catch there, and that was it.
You mean the 3-hour pregame shows weren't enough?
Oh my God,
insight
6
for you?
guys. Yeah, even with Jimmy. I mean, we love Jimmy, but Jesus.
I don't think they can fit any more guys on that set.
How big is the set? It covers the whole field. I mean, it's unreal.
They should say that though. They should introduce everybody, and then at a side table, we also have.
They do. They
Yeah.
have like more people. I mean, they're
Yeah.
on the field. They're in the locker room.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and yet you get like zero insight into what's actually going to transpire. That is anything unique to what you already knew about the ball game, especially if you were thinking about putting money on it. All right. Preliminary pick, Super Bowl, or too soon for you to make up your mind here, John?
No,
because you have a couple of weeks. So
with all people being closer to healthy,
yeah.
I think I would take Kansas City.
All right.
Early, but I didn't think they were going to get in. I thought Philly would find a way to beat San Francisco at home, but I
thought they would win that game. I did. Yeah. And it looked that way. I mean, for a lot of the second half, you were thinking, "Wow, the momentum is just slowly rolling towards the Cincinnati Bengals." And Jamar Chase and T. Higgins were spectacular in the game. It was weird neither team could run the football, but we'll see what happens. And that'll be the big story, I guess, for the next week or so is injuries. So we'll see a lot of Patrick Mahomes' ankle and a lot of State Farm commercials featuring Patrick. In fact, what isn't Patrick Mahomes hawking at this point? Good guy and represents all that you like about like athletes in general. Seems very humble. Looks like he's just totally loved, by his team where he's the genuine leader. Does all kinds of, magical things on the field. But what isn't he selling? I think I saw him selling gefilte fish, on some Israeli channel. This guy is like, gargling with a jar of gefilte fish. All right. Thanks, John. Always a pleasure, my friend. Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, bringing John Congemi and the Pigskin Playbook every week. Luby's still working on the plans to get down there after the season so we can have our conversation with Jimmy. We love having you on the program as always and being a part of it. And thanks so much for being with us again this week, John Congemi.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you guys soon.
All right. Very good. John Congemi.